Welcome back to Civil Discourse Now. My name is Mark Small. I'm an attorney in Indianapolis. My co-host is Paul Ogden. Our guest today is Jeff Cox. Big Hat Books is where we film a show or shoot it or whatever you call it when you do video on computers. Big Hat Books is located at 6510 North Cornell, or Cornell. I don't think it's North Cornell. I don't think there is a South Cornell.
Not that I know of.
It technically would be North Cornell because every street that goes north-south is either north-south in Indianapolis. It's just with no South Cornell, it's generally just called Cornell.
It's just Cornell, and it's right just short of 60, or just north of 65th Street, and right next to the Monon Trail. We're in the Broad Ripple section of Indianapolis. If you're from someplace else and don't know Indianapolis area, it's on the north side of Indianapolis. We were talking about United States military and amongst the books that are sold here is Christopher Hitchens' arguably essays. An excellent book. It's going to be one of the top 5 nonfiction for the United States in the New York Times bestseller list. And also, they have a gallery up here on the second floor at Big Hat Books. There's space to rent up here, so if you have like a party gathering, reception or something, you can rent space here. And then on the gallery outside, the rooms here, the G.C. Lucas Gallery exhibits paintings and stuff. They've got the works of artists Lorraine Sack, Karen Chevalier Smith, and Red Rohal, amongst others. It's really neat stuff. So if you get a chance to come to Big Hat Books, it's really a cool place. Now, we were talking about, I contend, U.S. military is overexpanded around the world. We should really be contracted because we don't need all those people all over the place. But this one place, it's a U.S. Army base garrison, U.S. Army garrison Garmisch in Germany. It's basically a ski resort that we're maintaining there. Another place that we don't need is Guantanamo. They don't keep weapons there. They don't do anything there except they have detainees there that they're keeping there illegally. But
No, they're keeping them there perfectly legally.
But the only reason that we had Guantanamo in the first place, after the Spanish-American War, we got the Cuban leaders that were installed to sign an agreement that we'd have a cheap lease for 100 or 200 years or whatever for a coaling station for our ships, because we had steamers then. We switched to oil, so we used that as an excuse. Then we needed it for surveillance in the Caribbean. Really now it's just to irk Fidel Castro's regime, but Fidel Castro is retired, and so really there's no need to have Guantanamo there.
Not really. He's still around. Another Raul Castro, his brother. And it's a good enough reason just to irk the Castro regime.
So spend a lot of money that we could be using here at home just to piss somebody off.
That's what diplomacy is.
Okay, so we have other bases all over the place. We have the huge Bagram Air Base in Iraq. Huge.
That's Afghanistan.
I get the two mixed up. I'm sure the people who being on the ground there are being shot at and stuff don't get them confused. I apologize for making that error. But we have huge bases in both Afghanistan and Iraq. We could pull people out from there. We have 50 or 60,000 military personnel in Germany, and the Cold War is over. We could pull all those people back home.
I would disagree. In the case of Iraq and Afghanistan, we currently have ongoing operations there. Now, whether we should or whether we are undertaking those operations properly is a separate question. But we do have operations going on in those countries, so it makes perfect sense to have bases there. In the case of Germany, I would agree that we can probably cut back on the number of bases that we have in Germany. But we do need bases in Germany because they serve as important supply points and staging areas for redeploying of our forces in the event of an international emergency.
Well, in other words, we're maintaining this whole worldwide network that enables the United States to deploy people wherever they should be deployed for whatever arises. It's not a declared war, and that serves the function, in some instances, of protecting corporate interests that aren't even the United States.
That's what militaries have done for thousands of years.
But that means that we are the cops of the world.
No, we are our own cops. What we do is we protect our interests across the world. I would say that we are not supposed to be the world's policemen, but we should protect our interests across the globe, and that means that we have to have the ability to project power across the globe. Otherwise, we cannot, in the traditional sense of U.S. foreign policy, we cannot protect the freedom of passage on the sea lanes.
But if we're wrecking our economy in the course of doing it, we're not going to be very, very powerful for very long.
I would argue that we're not wrecking our economy in the course of doing it. We're wrecking our economy in the course of doing other things that perhaps the government should not be doing.
Well,
But they should be doing the military. That's its job.
we have 10 Air Force carrier groups. 10 carrier groups. A carrier costs $4.5 billion to build. A carrier group is a group because it has other ships that are in support or in pickets in defense of it. So
Don't forget the cost of the air group.
and the planes, absolutely, or it would be an aircraft carrier. That's a very good point. So you have tremendous expenses in 10 carrier groups. I believe it's 10, it might be 11, that the United States has. No other country has, very few countries have aircraft carriers. I believe that the Chinese have one or two.
They just bought a decrepit one from Russia
Okay.
that they're refurbishing, but it's not very good. The British have a couple, the French have a couple.
Other than that, nobody has aircraft carriers. So we have this whole web of military bases abroad. It costs a lot of money, and there doesn't seem to be a lot that we're really doing with it.
Do you have home insurance?
Yes.
Do you have car insurance?
Yes.
Do you have life insurance?
No.
Okay.
Because the life insurance isn't going to prevent me from dying.
This is true. Those are big expenses, aren't they? Your homeowner's insurance, your car insurance?
Not significantly, because I'm a safe driver, and the home insurance, it's not that bad because it's relatively reasonable.
It's still significant, is it not?
As a percentage of my gross domestic product, no.
As your income.
As my income.
And most people, it's a significant part of it eats up a significant part of their income.
And part of my income is paid for taxes, so I can pay for police forces. I get your point. That we need to have security, and just the fact that it's there.
Yeah, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. That's
I'm sorry to interrupt. What kind of international crises are you envisioning that we have to have these bases all over the world? If something comes up, can't we secure base arrangements to put troops certain places to project power? Why do we have to have permanent bases, all these places across the world?
Because, number one, those bases are a deterrent to attacks by people who might want to hurt us. The second thing is it enables us to move very, very quickly. In the instance with Iraq in the first Persian Gulf War, we were able to respond fairly quickly because we had bases in the area, and Iraq was always fearful of an attack by air because we had bases in Turkey, we had bases in Diego Garcia, and we had bases in Germany that we could have used to get to Iraq. And the biggest crisis point right now is the Middle East, but we're probably going to have at some point the Far East with North Korea. We can at least get forces on point in theater to be able to respond to those crises. And that enters the calculus of leaders like North Korea or Iran or Syria, because they know, there's a U.S. aircraft carrier group there. Maybe we don't want to mess with these people. Of course, they're messing with us anyway, but they'd mess with us a lot more if we did not have the ability to strike back quickly.
Yeah, but if you're bringing in theater and the dictator of North Korea, those have different meanings because he watches a lot of movies, he's into theater and...
Let's not discuss the movies that he watches. I really don't want to think of that.
Neither do I.
And he's supported by China.
Well,
so
yes, but the thing is, if you're talking about crises occurring in the Middle East, when was the last time that the United States, in terms of an Israeli problem, because I think that that's the one problem people don't want to talk about, is if Israel were in a military involvement. It was in a war. It was attacking one of its neighbors. When was the last time the United States was involved in one of those? Directly, with our personnel.
It has not been.
We had a ship that was sunk during the '67 war that was off the coast of Israel. It was sunk by Israeli forces. Other than that, we've never had anybody there.
Yes, that's correct.
And the Israelis have nukes.
But it's a threat that's unspoken. They know. They know we're going to come to Israel's aid. And they know we can do it very, very quickly.
In 1973, when Israel nearly was overrun, that was probably the closest Israel came to defeat in battle.
The Yom Kippur War.
Yes. Since the modern state of Israel came into existence in 46, 47, in that period. The Israeli army, the Israeli Air Force itself was able to repel the attackers. And they didn't have us there. So it wasn't our military presence in any way that contributed.
So you're assuming that Israel can do that again and again and again.
Well, because, first of all, Israel has nukes. None of the other countries in the region has nukes.
Iran will, unless we stop them.
No, I don't think Iran will, because we're watching them pretty closely, and nobody wants Iran to have nukes. It
doesn't matter if no one wants Iran to have nukes if no one's willing to do anything about it.
The last time anybody in the Middle East wanted nukes was in 1982. Iraq was building the means by which they could create nuclear weapons. And as I recall, that reactor was blown out.
By the Israelis.
Yes, it was.
But do not forget that the Syrians just a few years ago had one of their reactors blown up under mysterious circumstances, probably by Israeli special forces with the assistance of the United States.
We don't know that the United States was necessarily giving them assistance, but again, it wasn't our military presence or carrier groups that were doing that.
Those groups are considered a threat. It's like a burglar is less likely to rob a home if he knows the homeowner is armed.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
No.
Yes,
a burglar
it
is more likely to break into a home if the burglar knows that the resident has a firearm and the homeowner is not there, because firearms are readily fenced.
If they're going to face an armed homeowner, they're generally going to try to avoid that place.
By not breaking into the home while the homeowner is present. They don't break into houses most burglars are not like Cary Grant to Catch a Thief. They aren't like kind of going over the roof and coming into a window while somebody's asleep and taking things like the Grinch did. I'm mixing metaphors and films. But like the Grinch did, taking things while all the Who's were asleep. They bust into homes when people aren't there, and they take guns, jewelry, and cash.
And so the spate of home invasions that we've had in Indianapolis this year would seem to contradict you on the fact that they don't want to go into burglarized houses with people in them. They care about people being armed. They don't want to risk themselves. They don't care if people are in there.
There's been a spate of burglaries with people actually in the homes.
Yeah, home invasions. We had a number of home invasions this year in Indianapolis.
Okay,
and that's considered a minor crime.
There were some up in Fishers that I recall.
Well, there have been many in the center section of Indianapolis.
We're almost at the end of segment 2. Actually, we are at the end of segment 2. We'll be right back. We'll get to that in the next segment.